Shishimard's divine grace, founder of ISKCON Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Granthra Shrimadbhagavatam ki, their most merciful Lordship Shri Shrikunja Bihari ki, Shri Jagannath, Shri Baladeva Subhadra ki, Shri Nataji, Shri Balagopal ki, Shri Gaurnitai ki, Nitai Go Prem. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the glorious feet of Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottama Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nasta Prayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naistiki. Reading reading from Shrimadbhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, Text 23. Text 23. Aho Mahiyasi Jantor. Aho Mahiyasi Jantor. Jivitasa Yata Bhavan. Jivitasa Yata Bhavan. Imapavarjitam Pindam. Imapavarjitam Pindam. Adate Griha Palavat. Adate Griha Palavat. Aho Mahiyasya Jantor.
Aho Mahiyasi Jantur.
Jivitasa Yata Bhavan.
Jivitasa Yata Bhavan.
Bhima Parvajitam Pindam.
Bhima Pavarjitam Pindam.
Adate Griha Palavat.
Adatte Griha Palavat.
Aho Mahiyasi Jantor.
Aho Mahiyasi Jantur.
Jivitasa Yata Bhavan.
Jivitasa Yata Bhavan.
Bhima Pavarjitam Pindam.
Bhima Pavarjita Pindam.
Adate Griha Palavat.
Adatte Griha Palavat.
Please chant.
Aho Mahiyasi Jantur.
Aho Mahiyasi Jantor.
Jivitasa Yata Bhavan.
Jivitasa Yata Bhavan.
Bhima Pavarjitam Pindam.
Bhima Pavarjitam Pindam.
Adatte Griha Palavat.
Adate Griha Palavat.
Aho Mahiyasi Jantor.
Aho Mahiyasi Jantor.
Jivitasa Yata Bhavan.
Jivitasa Yata Bhavan.
Bhima Pavarjitam Pindam.
Bhima Pavarjitam Pindam.
Adate Griha Palavat.
Adate Griha Palavat. Aho. Alas. Mahiyasi. Powerful. Janto. Of the living being. Jivitasa. Hope for life. Yatha. As much as. Bhavan. You are. Bhima. Of Bhimashane. A brother of Yudhisthira. Apavarjitam. Remnants. Pindam. Foodstuff. Adate. Eaten by. Griha Palavat. Like a household dog. Aho Mahiyasi Jantor. Jivitasa Yata Bhavan. Bhima Pavarjitam Pindam. Adate Griha Palavat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace by Charnadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Alas, how powerful are the hopes of the living being to continue his life. Verily, you're living just like a household dog and are eating remnants of food given by Bhima. Please repeat. Alas, how powerful are the hopes of a living being
How powerful are the hopes of a living being
to continue his life. Verily, you are living just like a household dog
You are living just like a household dog
and are eating remnants of food given by Bhima.
and are eating remnants of food given by Bhima.
Alas, how powerful are the hopes of a living being to continue his life. Verily, you're living just like a household dog and are eating remnants of food given by Bhima. Report. A sadhu should never flatter kings or rich men to live comfortably at their cost. A sadhu is to speak to the householders about the naked truth of life, so that they may come to their senses about the precarious life in material existence. Dhritarashtra is a typical example of an attached old man in household life. He became a pauper in the true sense, yet he wanted to live comfortably in the house of the Pandavas, of whom Bhima especially is mentioned because personally he killed two prominent sons of Dhritarashtra, namely Duryodhana and Dushasana. These two sons were very much dear to him for their notorious and nefarious activities, and Bhima particularly pointed out because he killed these two pet sons. Why was Dhritarashtra living there at the house of the Pandavas? Because he wanted to continue his life comfortably, even at the risk of all humiliation. Vidura, therefore, was astonished how powerful is the urge to continue life. The sense of continuing one's life indicates that a living being is eternally a living entity and does not want to change his bodily habitation. The foolish man does not know that a particular term of bodily existence is awarded to him to undergo a term of imprisonment, and the human body is awarded after many, many births and deaths as a chance for self-realization to go back home, back to Godhead. But persons like Dhritarashtra try to make plans to live there in a comfortable position with profit and interest, for they do not see things as they are. Dhritarashtra is blind and continues to hope to live comfortably in the midst of all kinds of reverses of life. The sadhu, like Vidura, is meant to awaken such blind persons and thus help them go back to Godhead, where life is eternal. Once going there, no one wants to come back to this material world of miseries. You can just imagine how responsible a task is entrusted to a sadhu, like Mahatma Vidura. Om Jnanatimanandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshusun Militamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. When we're seeing in our own lives attachments that we have ourselves, but see, Dhritarashtra is blind. And I mean, in one sense, he lived without principles while he was in control of the kingdom. And evidence of that is that same lack of concern for the principles that should be guarding the governmental positions of people. He was ruling as a king, trying to take the position of a king and encouraging the activities of his sons in sinful ways, their envious denial of the right for the Pandavas to have their judicial kingdoms of responsible sons of the emperor would have. But see, if we don't have principles, the very principles he was fighting for, that his children or his sons were fighting for, now they've all been killed off and defeated, and still he would choose to live at the hands of those he considered to be his enemy. So this is a revelation of the place he was brought to because he had no principles to be in a position to rule. And Krishna brought him to a place where now, being put in the place where he should be renouncing. See, this advice in here for a like a Muni, a Guru, or a renunciate. The position he takes is to give good advice to the kings to keep them from being dissuaded from moral principles by their own desires for material enjoyment without putting God first above all. This relates as well to the concept I was remembering, that we were encouraged every morning to remember about that which pleased Srila Prabhupada most. In the efforts devotees were making to distribute books, when those when the numbers of books going out were spoken in the morning class before, right after Mangalarti, it would bring great happiness to Srila Prabhupada's heart. And this is behind the statement, books are the basis. And the deep insight into the very meaning of this is that ideally, the funding that we use to build the temple with and maintain the temple with and support the devotees and the deities with is that Lakshmi that is gathered by distribution of books. So now we find ourselves, I shouldn't say we, I'm not holding a job, but for the most part, our congregational members are holding full-time jobs. And because of that, it keeps them from being able to involve themselves in anything else throughout the day than that which they're employed to do, which is not book distribution. But also applying the concepts of Krishna consciousness according to time and circumstance, we also have a situation where people don't see the need for their having a book because anything they want to read, they just go online and pick it out, especially with database being available for anyone. But the value of having the hard copy is you don't have to turn on your computer and it's always there to find, and you just flip through it. And anytime you want to read Bhagavatam, it is there available to you. So we used to encourage so much householders to find some way or another for them to be able to support the kitchen. Because by the book distribution, see, householders at that time, when I first came to the movement, householders were supporting themselves by distribution of books in the airports. But now it makes it a little more difficult the way the circumstances are in the society at large. But still the function of the disciple-guru relationship is that disciple is always interacting with the general public at large, because the purpose of the movement is to give shelter to those in society who innocently are on paths supposedly giving them the highest gift human life has for followers of spiritual truths, but who we know are not getting the complete picture, which we see Bhagavatam is. See, even if you study the Bible, even if you study the Quran, even if you study the Book of Mormon, you study all these books, you will not find, as we do see in Bhagavatam, the completeness of philosophy that contained in every single verse, so in depth a revelation of relationships, of responsibilities, of psychological perspectives, so many things in each and every one verse that can be spoken of for hours and hours. And so this makes it outstanding, a literature by anyone who comes in contact with Srila Prabhupada's transliterations will come to value the fact that these enable us to be able to recite these testimonials of events that took place 5,000 years ago, to have within our minds and consciousness the history of the world unknown, unbeknownst to most of the population of the world. Most people do not know Krishna's pastimes. So even if we reason with people who are considering themselves having no faith whatsoever in a God or in a supreme being, still we could reason that if we were to set about a value system that within reason gave us impetus to develop a certain way of thinking for human beings to develop most perfectly, then we would conclude that as developing human beings, we have use of the eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and all these things. Then we would be brought to the state of existence where we would eat the most refined foods. We would eat the most healthful, beneficial foods. We would think our minds would be given the ability to concentrate and think about the most glorious thoughts that mankind can experience in order to know what satisfaction is, what happiness is, what joy is, what glorious relationships are. So by this reasoning, then, we could reason further with an atheist to ask them who they know to have such examples of acts in their life to reveal to the rest of humanity at large that kind of thought process, that kind of living habits day in, day out they would have in order for us as human beings to become better human beings. And the challenge could be put for them to find someone better than Krishna. If you can find someone better than Krishna, all right, then we will follow his example. We will use the process he is giving for us to become better human beings. But until you can show us a better path, Krishna is in the form of Lord Chaitanya giving us the easiest process. What's more simple than singing a song? Sitting, not physically having to do any labor, but just simply sing a song. Just sing a song. And then let the song reveal its meaning to you. Do you have a song that will do that? So we have a song that does that, and we are getting that every day. So this is why we are promoting this concept and this idea that there is a song to be sung. There is a song, a glorious sound vibration to be created by the human voice that can carry the soul into the realms of spirituality, into the realms of eternalness, in its realization, with the conceptualizations brought forth by the recitation of this glorious putting together of names of God's energy, the person of God, and that eternal bliss that one comes to know as they do take part in the great privilege being given to human beings. Low class, middle class, high class, whatever class you think you're in. You have the ability to create with this material vocal box that you've been given in this human form, that you use for making all kinds of different sounds. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead is giving us the advice that He has empowered the sound you can create with your own vocal cords, the same way He spoke the sound at the very beginning of the foundation of this entire universe. Not just the earth, but the foundation of the entire universe. Before there were even planets, this sound vibration, the most ancient, from the most ancient language, from which place everything there that is spoken is the substance that it describes. So that is so powerful truth coming out of every single living being there that reveals the value and the potency of absolute truth, is that it is itself the substance of itself. And in that place where all communication originated and came from, the very words describe what they are. Can you imagine? See, we're living in a place that such things just seem supernatural, what we call supernatural. Can't be. But such abilities to prove such things exist, are given to those who are faithfully on the path, wanting to prove the truths of the Supreme Personality of God. They are called cities, perfections of the human form. So there are those who can, out of the middle of nowhere, just produce a lump of gold, produce a fruit, produce anything the mind can come up with, because the power of the mind is such as well. By being totally immersed in the absolute truth itself, the revelation of the value and the power and the substance of the truth becomes manifest. So all of these realities that have existed since time immemorial are being revealed to us, for us to be able to understand our position as human beings in comparison to what we could be. And what the scriptures are revealing to us is commonplace in the spiritual world. So we won't need telephones, we won't need airplanes. Although even in the heavenly realms here, they're also using airplanes, machine airplanes, not only animals, but they also have creatures that they fly on. And from the way it's being described, with Brahma, the highest in the universe, riding on a swan, we can see that the interaction with different forms of life, other living entities in higher planetary systems than what to speak of the spiritual world, have abilities to see all living entities as servants. And in that place where that is known as a reality by all the living entities, and that is what these teachings are giving us the ability to be returned to, that place of perfection, where there's no death, disease, old age, all these crippling forces of nature that we see within this universe, the dwelling place of death. Mrityaloka, the entire universe is Mrityaloka. So, with that in mind, being given the instructions of how to get out of Mrityaloka, the place where death exists, then we simply follow the instructions of Bhagavatam being given. And then its application, why we need, because as society changes, our ability to relate to society because of their minds changes also. So we keep in tune, just like Bhaktivinoda made adjustments. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta made adjustments. When he rode in a car, it was an adjustment he made with the philosophy. When Srila Prabhupada rode in an airplane, it was an adjustment that was made of the philosophy for the sake of preaching. And that is what is meant by utility, is the principle. We use everything in Krishna's service. And that gives us perspective, the fact that everything came from Krishna to be used for his service. So, this is a way for us to be able to experience satisfaction using everything in this world for the purpose it was meant to be used for. But the frustration comes by human beings trying to manipulate the energies, plural, of this world for their own satisfaction. And it's bringing dissatisfaction, it's bringing discontent, and it's creating problems with the entire human race that is being deceived into believing its source of happiness is coming from another place besides the supreme original person. Modern scientists think, and we know this by the books they promote to be written, that almost society is demanding to be known of evolution of man, how man came into existence. And so with this experimental knowledge they have, modern science has concluded that man originated from monkeys. Grandpa, monkey man. So we could have, if we had knowledge of our ancestral origins in our great keeping of our ancestors, pictures of our ancestors, the very first ones would be monkeys. And they were, Uncle Ralph, Uncle Waldo. Yeah, they were monkeys. But see, we see even by the fact that the material energy is not moving fast or picking up, it's actually going slower and slower. They say, though, now that the Earth's speed is increasing. I don't know what that means, if it's going around the sun more rapidly. And whether anybody knows, I would like to know if there are independent of the Earth's gravity satellites that are able to take pictures of the Earth's movement for possibly a year or so, or 6 months, or even a week. that we could observe. But if not, it means those things are themselves held to the earth by the gravitational pull. And they're saying they have reached the extremes to where there is no more gravitational pull. When they get to the moon, they made their claim. Then those satellites, without that gravitational pull holding them, would be able to see from a neutral, if anything in the universe is able to remain in one constant place at all. Is anything able to do that? That would be the only, wouldn't that be the only way one could see objectively everything else that's moving in the universe if you yourself were standing still? And as we feel ourselves to be standing still in this moment, in this room, our accreditation with what the earth is doing is that it is moving. So if we are on the planet that's moving, then we are also moving, even though we feel stationary. And this same state of consciousness, no matter where you go in the universe, it is relative to the place you are in as to how fast you're moving, which direction you're going in, what your relationship to the sun is, what your relationship is to, and how much you weigh. That all determines how much you weigh. So this helps us to understand that if the entire universe is inhabited by forms of life, which the Vedas say it is, then there are different bodies to be able to accompany different environmental circumstances than what we are ourselves accustomed to. But with human beings so puffed up with their false egos, believing that they can figure everything out for themselves by study of the external energy, the material energy of God. And it's the same thing looking at a boy going down the road on a bicycle and saying, the reason the bicycle is moving is because by the pressure applied to the pedals, the force is causing the gears that are connected to the chain are causing the wheels to turn, with no knowledge whatsoever of the person who is riding the bicycle going to his destination. And this is the same thing with the universe. If we don't know the purpose of being brought into this place, then we won't have the real inside story, even though we may know the mechanics of it. We may be able to describe so-called scientifically the activities that we see going on with our external senses, but we have internal senses to know by consciousness purpose. And Krishna is wanting to give each and every one of us a realization of what that would be perfectly for each and every one of us, to be able to be in that eternal situation with Him. And this is what Krishna consciousness is offering to us. If we want some other place in this material world, you don't need Krishna consciousness to find that. You can find plenty of good paying jobs, go to the universities that are available and find whatever career you want. But if you want removal entirely from the control of the material energy that is totally connected to the laws of God based on karma. Karmic reactions are automatic. You can't get free of them by any other means than that which the controller, the maker of those laws, gives. So the same person, Krishna, who created the laws of the universe, every action that we are making in our lives towards benefiting ourselves as our making this a comfortable place for ourselves to live in, it is having a reaction. And that reaction that is having upon us is that force that will keep us within its, because we are wanting to be experiencing that form of energy that the external energy is revealing. We get that at the end of life. That is the consciousness we develop. I want to be happy by this thing. I want to satisfy my tongue. I want to satisfy my eyes. I want to satisfy my ears. But this is what is bringing us over and over and over again into birth, death, old age, and disease. And we're continually developing desires to do that, thinking this is human life. This is the utmost of human life, when it's actually not. It is the utmost of what's keeping us connected to the material energy that is the place, Mrtyu-loka, the place of death. We don't know. We seeing ourselves in the situation we're in, we're thinking of it as life in totality, but without the knowledge of the difference between the fact that the material universe is temporary and the spiritual world, which we continuously long for, is eternal, then we're going to have that craving in our hearts of dissatisfaction with the way things are, without knowing that there is a place that everything is perfect. And then they have it in their prayer, thy will be done, O God. But they have it in their prayer, give us this day our daily bread. It's a constant demand of God, give me, God, what I want. And what we need to develop is a constant mentality, dear Lord, how can I serve you? What can I do that will make you happy? And that is surrender, and that is breaking, what is required is a breaking down of the false ego. False simply means we're directing our attention in the wrong direction. Whereas we can take the same attention that we give to the material energy to the spiritual energy and get the exact opposite effect. Rather than getting death, we're getting life, getting real life with the inner meaning. By knowing the fact of this reincarnation going on and on and on, it's so much in our minds solves the problems of why do good people have to go through so much suffering like this. There have even been books written, why do bad things happen to good people, something like that. So Prabhupada says, we're not born innocent, we're born ignorant. And there's a big difference. So, what might help reaching people who are in positions of influence to make laws is communicating with them in such a way to help them understand the truths of the Vedas, because by observing the communication going on in Congress with one another and the debates that they hold, it is obvious. I don't see any of them having come to the full position called self-realization. And that is why it is so important for mankind to realize the value of these teachings and to realize the significant importance of applying the principles of Dharma to our lives And that is the only way we're going to find satisfaction with the activities of our lives. If we're dedicating our lives to the furtherance of another human being's well-being, we better make sure that well-being of that individual is a path that leads to the place we want to get to. This is why Krishna gives explanation in the Bhagavad Gita of what effect serving people has on us. If you serve the forefathers, wherever those forefathers are, you will go to be with them. And this is revealed, as Krishna also explains, that what you're thinking about at the time of your death. So whatever you've dedicated your life to, that's what you're going to be thinking about. So it's very important to realize, we're going to dedicate our lives to the temporary, or we're going to dedicate our lives to the eternal. And with the person who has sense of reasoning, we don't see any eternal knowledge being spoken by any academia. Other than that, I see in ISKCON, I don't know, most of these other paths are giving away to the heavenly planets, all contained within this Mrityaloka, none of which reveals the absolute truths about the spiritual world. So without that knowledge, there's going to be frustration, because it is that constant seeking of perfection that we are doing in our lives and not being able to find it that's bringing us frustration. And it is that knowing where that perfection is and how to get there that brings satisfaction in life. Now you can take what you've learned from the Supreme Person's own mouth. When we say these teachings are spoken by Krishna, we're actually saying the truth. We say they're written. We know that these are the personal utterances of God Himself. Now, many people are making that claim about other human beings. So they better know the person they're serving. We have to know who we're serving and the value of serving them in order for our life to find satisfaction, in order for us as souls to find satisfaction with what we're doing. Because if what we're doing accumulates an energy force that causes us in the future to be put somewhere we don't want to be, we don't want to be engaging in those acts. We only want to engage in those activities that will enable us, while we're doing that, by helping others find these truths, then ultimately that's the greatest help for ourselves. Just like when we pray. If we're praying for the well-being of our leaders, if we're praying for the well-being of those who we love, automatically our needs will be taken care of. So when you look at how you can benefit other human beings, this is why a few times a year there are celebrations that require people to think about somebody else besides themselves. Right? Birthdays, Christmas, Easter time, Valentine's, these kinds of things. They put it in our minds, oh, I need to give something to someone. So Krishna consciousness is, we have that mentality every day about everyone. Everyone we meet, we have something glorious to give them. This knowledge that is being passed down by word of mouth from guru to disciple. This is the most valuable treasure for human life to experience. And this is what is being offered by the Parampara through the International Society of Krishna Consciousness itself. If there are any others that are doing that, they should make themselves known to humankind, so that with all applicable means that we have at hand's reach, be able to take these precepts, apply them to our lives, and experience the happiness that they are guaranteeing. They are guaranteeing we will. Krishna says he's putting all of his pleasure potencies, Ram, 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 pleasure potency of Krishna is in his name, so that you want to be happy, then sing the names of God. You want to know bliss, then sing the names of God. And you can get as happy as God is. He's sharing, he wants to share his happiness with us. That's what it's all done for. That's why Srila Prabhupada says, chant and be happy. Yeah. So that's all we have to do. That's all God's asking of us. Sing and be happy. And while we can do this while we are engaging in activities that are a benefit to all the human race, preparing foodstuffs, glorious foodstuffs for the Supreme Person, that then when distributed brings consciousness of a supernatural kind to overcome all obstacles in our lives. That kind of thinking that brings relief to the troubled souls. That kind of angst that helps us to share the suffering of others and want to go out and bring relief to mankind so they can know also the same joy and happiness that we have. So, as we look about our lives and the daily purposes we have, let's stop thinking about ourselves and start thinking more about the Supreme Original Person from whose original body we came from, whose eternal body we came from, and by the satisfaction of whose instructions will bring us the greatest happiness there is. We think like that all day long, every day. At the end of this life, there is a destiny predetermined by the laws set forth by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, automatically bring us to that place that he has designed for each and every individual being that will take part in this process. There is a special arrangement made by the person who is giving it to us. And that is Krishna. 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 You can cherish that name and all the energy it brings with it. John, any comments, any questions, any realizations anyone like to share? What a glorious privilege we have to be able to live in full knowledge of God. Krishna's giving us knowledge of himself. Only limitations by our own minds, by our own doubts, our own lack of faith. That's all that keeps us from knowing the fullness of love of God. We ourselves are our biggest hindrance to our own advancement in knowing the love that God has for us and the taste we can get by realizing that. Jai Granthara Shrimadbhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Hare Krishna.